All right, so here we go. Okay, so I sent you guys the workbook. That's just to kind of save on the writing time, because I find that sometimes some students write fast, some write slow. So you definitely want to write off the notes, but in terms of the questions, at least you would have had them already. I made sure to still put it on the board because I know that some persons may not have two devices working with, so it might be a little hard for you to switch in between like classes and looking at it, right? So the worksheet is just so that you have it, so that you know you don't have to write off the question, but it's there. Okay, so we're gonna get straight into it. So guys, so we're starting with functions, right? So for this class and on Sunday, we're going to do functions. The aim is to finish this booklet today, and then I'll send you another one tomorrow so that those who want to work on it in advance, so that when you come, you can see your mistakes or anything like that. That should be good to go. Okay, so we say we have the function f is defined by, right? And they put the f dot x, 3 minus 2x. Now, the first thing I want to point out in terms of just for note purposes, so this f colon x is the same thing as f of x, right? So some questions you'll see it with the colon, some you'll see it with the brackets around the x. Those two things mean the same, right? It's just another way to write it. So maybe that's something you can jot down. Now, when we speak about a function, we're basically speaking about instructions, right? So I could have, whenever we have the one with the bracket, rather than the arrow, you put like an equal sign. So I'm basically saying to you that those two things mean exactly the same, right? They may look different, but they're communicating the same thing. So you'll see some questions with the bracket and the equal, some with the colon and the arrow. The most important thing to understand about functions as we are doing it is that the x, or whatever is in the bracket or what comes after the colon, that is essentially the input, right? So how I usually like to describe functions is, let's say we are baking a cake, right? And let's say I input chocolate, right? What I would expect to get out is chocolate cake, right? So in general, we know how to bake a cake depending on the X I put in. So if I put in vanilla, I'll get out a vanilla cake. If I put in chocolate, I get out a chocolate cake, right? So what I have in red is the chocolate cake. What you have on this side are the instructions, right? So it's the instructions on how to use the input. So if you notice, there's an X there, right? So we're just trying to use this as a little teaching moment so that those who maybe have never done it before, never seen it, don't remember it, didn't learn it properly, there's a deeper understanding, right? So I'm saying that f of x is the end product, right? Which is the chocolate cake. The x is the chocolate. And I'm saying what's on the right side. So whatever expression that will be given is telling you how to use the x or how to use the ingredients, right? So for example, if you look on a cake box, it's not like you just put in any amount of chocolate. You might be able to see them say a half cup of chocolate, right? Or a quarter cup of chocolate chips. Whatever it may be, I'm saying that the expression on the right is giving you the instructions on how to use that input or that X. Okay, So if you notice, it says the diagram below shows the mapping diagram of the function f, determine the value of a. Right? And then we have a, we have 3, we have 1, we have -1. Right? So essentially what they're telling you, just so that you can also understand what the diagram is saying. The diagram is saying, when I put in 0, right? So when I put in vanilla, what I get out is a vanilla cake. So if you notice on the top, right? If you notice, you see x here and you see f of x here, right? So I'm saying that when you see the 0, it is telling us that if we input 0, we will output 3, right? So if you input vanilla, what you're going to get out is a vanilla cake. That's how you read it. It's also saying, maybe that color won't work, right? If you input 1, you get out 1. If you input 2, you output -1. So I'm just going to use the 0 and the 3 so that when we use the -1 and the a, it will make sense. So just going to show you with the 0 so that you have an understanding of the diagram, right? So f of 0, remember we said what? This is telling us the input 0. And why am I inputting 0? Because it's where the x is. So when you see f of 0, I'm saying that wherever you see x, you're going to put 0. So look at what I have in green up top, where I have the green box, which is right here. Right, so the instructions, me putting the 0 there, I'm putting it where they tell us. So if they tell me to put the eggs after the flour, then that's what I have to do. Right, and we know that any number times 0 is 0. So that's how they got the 3. Right, so they're asking us for A, but I just want to show you how to understand what the diagram is saying. So the diagram is saying if you input 0, what you output is 3. And I just proved that to you. So when the first part of the question says to find A, what they're really asking you is that if you input -1, right? So when I move to the next part of the question, what they're really asking us is that if we input -1, what is the output? So I basically just showed you an example by using the 0 and show you how when I input 0, I get out 3. So we're going to do the same thing for -1. We're going to put in -1 and see what we get out. So before I move any further, can I get some yeses, some no's? Are we following so far? Are we comfortable? If it's a no, try to not just say no, but try to direct me to what might be a little bit confusing. So if it's a yes, give me a yes. If it's a no, remember you have to try to be a little more specific. And remember, we're speaking privately. All right, so yeses so far. Waiting on the others. Okay, guys, remember the message privately is to ensure that, for example, if I ask you to work a question, if you get it incorrectly, nobody would end up seeing, right? Or if you got it incorrect rather. Okay, so I'm gonna go to another page. So for the person asking me to go a little deeper, we will for the next one. Okay. If anybody's still writing, give me a few to do so. Okay, so essentially what this question is asking you, so I'm saying that A is the output when we input -1. All right, so since the general thing is f of x is equal to 3 minus 2x, f of -1 means wherever you see x, you need to put -1. Right, similarly to over here, f of 0 means wherever you see x, you put 0. F of 1, wherever you see x, you put 1. F of 2, wherever you see x, you put 2. F of 100, wherever you see x, you put 100. All right, so where I see the x, I am going to put -1. I'm gonna go through something in terms of a little foundation skill that might give some persons a little problem. So I'll go through and then I'll come back for those persons. Right, guys, so we want to remember that if we have a negative and a negative, it's gonna become a positive. Right, and then 2 times 1 is 2. So don't worry, I'm going to go over that. Just doing it for those persons who would catch it the first time, and 3 plus 2 is 5. All right, I'm gonna come back to this page. Let's just do a little back work. So remember, guys, if you have a number on the outside of a bracket, so maybe let's put that, a number on the outside of a bracket means multiplication. All right, so for example, if you have plus y, right, this is coming from our multiplication rules, that a positive multiplied by a positive is a positive. Right, so for example, if I have plus 3 plus 2, we know that, okay, I have a number on the outside of a bracket, that means multiplication, right? So this is really saying what? Positive 3 times positive 2, which is going to give me positive 6. If you have a negative on the outside and a negative on the inside, a negative multiplied by a negative is also a positive. So for example, like the one we have here, we have -2, -1. So this really means -2 times -1. So I get a positive, and 2 times 1 is 2. So for those persons wondering how I got the positive 2, That's what I did. All right. And if you have positive times a negative, all right, it's a negative. All right, so that's basically positive 5 times negative 3, which would be minus 15. And the last one, if we have a negative on the outside, positive on the inside, a negative multiplied by a positive is a negative. Okay, go ahead and take that down for those persons who maybe need to fill that in terms of like foundation. All right, so just take that down. So just repeating for the person that came in. So we're doing the first question. All right, so I basically just said that if you have f of x with the colon, you can write it with the brackets. And I was pointing out that the x is the input, and then whatever expression is there is telling you how to use the input. Right, so I was pointing out that when you see the 0 matching to the 3, that is telling us that if we input 0, we would output 3. Right, and input 0 means wherever you see x, you put 0. Input 1 means wherever you see x, you put 1. Input 2 means wherever you see x, you put 2. So when you see at this part now, they're asking us for A, what this question really means is that they're asking us to find the output if the input is -1. Right, so your answer would be 5. All right, so for the person who just came, don't worry, there are other questions similar to this, so you'll catch on for that part. But for those who were here, anybody not seeing that it is 5, remember that if you have a number on the outside of a bracket, it means multiplication. So you need your multiplication rules. All right, guys, so don't worry, you'll get the recording. So for those persons who maybe write a little slower, can maybe leave the space and then fill in the notes after. All right, so for the second part now, they ask us to determine part A, they want the inverse of the function, right? So the inverse, you'll always have the letter and then a little -1 up the top, right? So sometimes they'll be nice enough to use the word inverse, but if they just put F and the little small -1 at the top, we're supposed to know that that means inverse. I know for some of you, most of you, I think it's my first time teaching you, so my handwriting is not always the best, but I will try to make it readable. So if there's anything I write that you're not understanding, the same way I don't embarrass you guys, you just don't embarrass me. Just message me privately and say, Miss, what's that word beside? And I will tell you, okay? Okay, so let me tell you the steps to find the inverse. Step 1, let y be equal to f of x. Or maybe I should do it. All right, so let's write the steps as we're doing them. All right, so remember we know that f colon 3 minus 2x, we already said that we could rewrite this as f of x equal 3 minus 2x, right? Because that's the better way to look at it. So I'm saying that step 1 is to let y be equal to f of x, or replace. Maybe we should say replace. Maybe that will be better when you're looking over your notes. So let's say replace f of x, and if it was g of x, you replace g of x, right? So they don't only use f, sometimes it's g, could be m, could be a, whatever it is. Don't get too caught up in the naming of the function. All right, so what do I mean by that? I'm literally going to replace f of x, and I'm going to put y instead. All right, so that's step 1. Literally all I did, replace f of x with y. Step 2, you are going to interchange all x's and y's. So that means wherever you see y, we're going to put x, and wherever we see x, we will put y. All right, so wherever I see y, I put x, and wherever I see x, I put y. So I literally interchange them. Step 3 is the hard part. So guys, even if you're going to your exam, if you are able to put step 1 and 2, you're already gaining some marks. Right, so again, step 1, simply replace f of x with y. Step 2, everywhere you see y, you're gonna put x, and everywhere you see x, you put y. So you interchange them. So before I move on to step 3, how is everybody? Is everybody clear on step 1 and step 2? Is everybody clear on step 1 and step 2? So guys, usually when I ask this, it's yes, I want to see those persons saying yes, but if it is that it's a no, this is me giving you an opportunity to put your no out there versus when at the end, I'm trying to make sure that everybody is following as we go along versus reaching the end and then we realize it's the whole thing that was misunderstood. All right, then for step 3, we are going to solve for y. The new y is your inverse. So when you do this, right, once you solve for y, whatever that new y is, that's your inverse. So what do we have? We have x is equal to 3 minus 2y. So to solve this, right, because remember we're solving for y. So if what I'm solving for is negative, it's just a personal preference, I like to make it positive. So since it is negative, or it's minus, it's being subtracted on the right-hand side. If I take it over to the other side, I do the opposite. Right, so you want to remember, in case anybody, again, we're doing the groundwork. So if something is plus on one side, when we take it to the next side, we're minus. If something is minus on one side, when we take it to the next side, we plus. If something is multiplied on one side, when we take it to the next, we divide. And if something is divided on one side, when we take it to the next, we multiply. So it's subtracted on the right. So when I take it to the left, I add. But I want the y by itself. So this x, which is being added, when I take it across, I am going to subtract. Again, always doing the opposite sign. So after today's class, if anybody realizes that solving for y is a problem, I do have videos on solving equations and just moving things around, which might be able to help you, right? Because if you're having a problem solving for y, that's not a functions problem, right? That's an algebra problem. Okay, the next thing we want to note is that numbers beside letters mean multiplication, right? So if you see 3y, that means 3 times y. If you see x, let's use, right? If you see MP, that really means M times P. So why am I saying that? Because I'm able to look at this and see that this is 2 times y, because I'm going to tell you that the 2 which is multiplied, when we take it across, we are going to divide. But if you don't know that, that 2 beside it means multiplied, then when I do that, it might seem a little bit odd. Right? So remember, this is the new y. What can we use? Right? So this is the new y. And what did I say? The new y is going to be the inverse. So f inverse of x is simply equal to 3 minus x over 2. So once you find that new y, you have found the inverse. So again, going over this question. To find the inverse of the function. Step 1, you replace your f of x with y. Step 2, everywhere you see y, you put x. Everywhere you see x, you put y. So you interchange them. Step 3, solve for y. So guys, when you get to step 3, if you're having a problem with step 3, I am telling you it's not a functions problem. It is an algebra problem, which if you are having a problem, you can maybe message me after class and I can send you some stuff to help with that. All right, but a lot of the times as students will say, I'm bad at math, when you truly are able to get the concepts. It's just that the foundation has some issues. All right, so again, going over this part. So the minus 2y, when I took it over, it became plus the x, which was added. When I take it over, I subtract. The 2, which is multiplied, when I take it over, I divide. So something else fundamental that some persons probably don't know, right? So fractions can be read as division, right? So for example, if I have x over 4, I can read it as x divided by 4. So when you see me talking about this 2 as divided, it's me using that principle that once it's in the denominator, as a fraction, I can also read it as division. Right? So this is just like a little bonus. This 2 down here was a little bonus. Okay, so before I move on to the next one, if there are any questions, let me know now. We're going to do many questions on it. So if you're not getting it now, or meaning rather, if you're getting it but you're not feeling comfortable, no worries, just the first question. But ensure that you're following the understanding and the logic, right? So right now, I'm not asking if you're comfortable, not asking you if you'd be a star on it. No, all I'm asking you to do is to just follow. If when we get to about the third question, you're feeling lost, then we know we have a problem. But if you're following the understanding, what we're going for in the first 3 questions is understanding. Right? After the third question, you should be able to feel more confident. Okay, then part B is talking about a composite function, right? Which simply means putting a function into a function, right? So for example, remember when we said, let's say you have f of 2, or let's go back to the f of 0, right? When we had f of 0, start with f of x. So we said that f of x was 3 minus 2x, right? And remember we said whatever is here, that's the input. So when we had f of 0, right, that was signaling to us that we wanted to input 0. So wherever I see x, I had put 0. Right? So what composite functions do now is that say you have f of x. So we also want to note something. So before I go here, we always put the right into, so it's 0 into the function, right? So because sometimes when you, yeah, just wait a little bit. Right? So I'm saying that what we know so far is that when we had f of 0, the idea is that we were putting 0 in. So for example, if I have f of x, what is happening is that whatever is on the right is what we are inputting to the left. So what f of x means is that wherever you see x, you would instead put f of x. If you see f of g of x, right, it means g of x is the input. So this is why it's called a composite function, because rather than putting in a number, sometimes we are asked to put in a function, right? So when you think about the word composite means to put together, right? Or to combine. So that's where the word is coming from. So you said composite function, put 2 functions together, combine 2 functions together, right? So you put the right into the left. So wherever we see x, instead we would have put g of x. If it was g of f of x, or rather, I'll leave that for another question, since you only have the f's, right? So I'm just showing you, for example, and we'll get into it in terms of what that looks like. But the main thing I want you to note at this point is that this here, which is the f of x, is also written as F2. So you don't call it squared, right? So when you see that, they're not asking you to square the function, right? It does not mean to square the function. It means to put the function f into f, right? So same thing, if you saw g2 of x, that really means g of x. And we're going to talk about the composite function some more, so don't overthink it. Right? So what I'm saying so far, what you need to take from this page, right, is that whereas before we were inputting numbers, now we're going to input functions. Right? So whereas before we were putting in numbers, I'm saying you can also put in a function. So we haven't done the question yet. This is just the knowledge for the question. Because I want you to understand what is a composite function first. Okay, so let me just work it in full and then I'll come back so that you guys can write, right? Because sometimes when I'm not explaining in full, it might break the momentum. Okay, so what we have is that f of x is equal to 3 minus 2x. We were asked for f squared of x, which we know is f of x, right? So we know that the input is x, and we are going to input into f. So when we were doing the questions before, right, when I said it was f of 0, wherever we see x, we put 0. So if it is f of x, it means that wherever I see x, I am going to put f of x. And what is f of x? F of x is 3 minus 2x. So rather than putting in a number, I had to put in a function. So just so that you can compare, remember guys, when it was f of 0, all we simply did, wherever we see x, we put 0. But I'm saying that instead of putting a number, you now have to put a function. All right, so we're gonna come back to this shortly. So in case anybody was still writing, finish writing. Right, guys, so this is the first one. So we have to move a little bit slow on this one just to kind of bring out the concepts. And then for the others, I'll just start working because I know you'll have the notes already in terms of the meaning. But how are we doing so far? Is everybody still with me? Again, not asking if you've mastered it, just asking if you're following. That's all. Okay, beautiful. Very proud of you guys. Okay, so at this point now, we have to recall, right, how to do our expansion, right? So if you have a number on the outside of the bracket, but there are two things happening. You're going to take the outside, multiply it by the first on the inside, and then you're going to take the outside and multiply it by the second on the inside. So usually I say outside times the first on the inside. Then you're going to take the outside and multiply it by the second on the inside. So sorry about that, guys. Yeah, that was a mistake. All right, so we're going to write back the 3. But then look at this. I'm going to take the -2 and multiply it by the 3. All right, so -2 times 3, but we know that a negative times a positive based on the rules I gave you earlier is a negative. So that's why I'm going to have -6. Then I'm going to take the outside and multiply it by the second on the inside. So that is -2 times -2x. But a negative times a negative is a positive, and 2 times 2x is 4x. And in the last step, we want to group our like terms. So 3 minus 6 is -3. So those persons who have a problem adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers, I'll go over, meaning I'll do a little revision on that shortly on the next page. I guess even though we're doing the question, we're revising all other concepts at the same time so that you're still getting that revision. All right, so that's how you'd work that question. So again, after you do the step of putting in the function, everything else, the expanding of the bracket, that's not functions. That is algebra. So if you realize you're having an algebra problem, again, I have videos on expansion. We can talk about those things, but do not get it confused. If you have a functions problem or a algebra problem, most times it's the foundation. All right. Giving everybody a minute more to write. Then I'm going to revise the adding and subtracting of the positive and negative numbers, and then we'll do the final question in this one. All right, so let's look at adding / subtracting our positive and negative numbers. All right, so for example, if we have 2 plus 3, we get 5. So the idea is that somebody gives you 2 apples and then they give you 3 more. In total, you have 5. If you have -2, -3, you want to imagine that somebody takes away 2 apples from you and then they take away 3 more. So in total, they have taken away 5. So please note, -2 minus 3 is not the same thing as -2 times -3, because I just told persons the negative. A common mistake is that persons mix it up. So -2 minus 3 is -5, whereas -2 times -3, this is where you say, okay, negative times negative is positive, and 2 times 3 is 6. Is everybody seeing the difference between those two things? Give me some yeses, guys. You have to stay engaged, stay awake. All right. So when I ask you the yeses, trust me, the typing of the little yes will make the difference. It will keep you awake, keep you engaged. All right. So the rules I gave you about the positive times positive, all of that, that's for multiplication. So don't mix it up. Okay, not getting an answer from everyone. All right, then let's say we had 2 minus 3. All right, so the first thing we want to note is that whenever we don't see numbers in front, or rather signs in front of numbers, we assume that it is a positive. So when I see that 2, I know it is really saying positive 2 minus 3. All right, so whenever you have a mixture of positive and negative, you handle it a little differently. You first subtract, and then it takes the sign of the bigger one. All right, so 3 minus 2 is 1. And then I look at the 2, I look at the 3. The 3 is the bigger number, so it takes the sign of the 3. Or you can look at it as you have team positive and you have team negative. There are 2 people on team positive, 3 people on team negative. Clearly the negative people are winning, they're outweighing the positive people. Right, same thing if that's an easier way for you to even look at this. So it's like you have 2 negative people in the room, and then 3 more come in the room. So in total we have 5 negative people. Right? As I said, when it's a mixture of positive and negative, you want to subtract, and then it takes the sign of the bigger one. So for example, well, the question that we just did, right, we had 3 minus 6. So what I really did was to put positive 3, and then I say, okay, what I need to do is to go ahead and subtract. And then I made it take the sign of the bigger one, which is the 6. So I'm going to come back to this page, but I'm just saying that that is why I said that 3 minus 6 was minus 3. So that's where I got it from. All right, guys, so take that off, and then we're going to do the final one. Okay, so for the final one now, we have f of f inverse of -2. So from you seeing the 2 letters, you know that that is a composite function. All right, so what is this telling me? This is telling me to insert f inverse of -2 into f. So I say, okay, f of x is equal to 3 minus 2x. So f of f inverse of -2 means that wherever I see x, I am going to put f inverse of -2. Now, rather than making it complicated, I would probably work this to the side right? So to the side, you want to go ahead and find F inverse of -2. So remember we had found F inverse, and what did we say F inverse was? We said that F inverse was 3 minus X over 2. So F inverse of -2, right, simply means that we're going to input -2 into F inverse. So wherever I see X, I am going to put or maybe I should use another color since this is a different, let's use blue. All right, so another thing, following the same multiplication rule. So if you see a plus on the outside of a bracket, a positive times a positive, you just change it to a single plus. If you see a minus on the outside of a bracket and a minus on the inside, change it to plus. If you have a plus and then a minus, you change it to minus. Right, and it's following the same multiplication rule. So why am I saying that? Because since I have a minus and a minus, I'm going to change it to plus. So I'm going to have 5 over 2. So what I'm really being asked to input, so guys, I'm going to repeat, let me just work the question to the end. Right, so since I know that F inverse of -2 is 5 over 2, right, I can literally plug it in. Right, and then the 2 into the 2, those cancel. So we have 3 minus 5. And based on what I just told you, you subtract and it takes the sign of the bigger one. So don't worry, I'm going to repeat everything. We just want it to work to the end. For those persons who are finished and you're okay, you can move on to the second question, which is January 2009. Okay, so for those persons who need me to repeat, just declare no so that I can focus on you. Right, so anybody that needs me to repeat, just indicate so I focus on you. Everybody else, just while I'm working with them, move on to the next question and try and see if you could do it on your own. Okay, somebody wants me to repeat. Anybody else? Okay, so 2 repeats, no problem. Anybody else? Okay. All right, no problem. All right, so the first thing is that we have F of F inverse of -2. Now remember I was saying that whenever, the first thing you want to know is when you see this question, what does it mean? Right, it means that the function that is on the right, we need to put it into the left. So for those persons who ask me to repeat, let me see, let me put it in the red box. Are you seeing the red box? In terms of, so what I did is wherever I would have X, right? Instead, I insert not a number, but I insert the function, which is the f inverse of -2. So are you guys seeing that concept? So just like when it was f of 0, wherever we see x, we put 0. When it was f of x, wherever we see x, we put f of x. But now what we're being asked to input is f inverse of -2. Sorry. Okay, awesome. So then I'm saying, okay, how about I try and work this to the side? Right, so what I did is say, let me go and figure out what is f inverse of -2. So it's like I go to the side of my paper and I say, okay, well, what does f inverse of -2 mean? That means I need to insert, because remember, that's what we're always doing. Whatever is on the right, we need to put it into the left. So what it is really saying is that, oh, I need to put -2 into f inverse. So then you want to think, do I even know what f inverse is? And then you realize that from the second part of the question, you had already found f inverse. So all this means is that wherever you see x in f inverse, you're going to put -2. Are you guys with me up to that point? Following the logic? All right, beautiful. So when I insert the -2, right, this is what I had. But I'm saying to you, based on the rules we have up here in the top right-hand corner, right? If I see a minus and a minus, I am supposed to change it to a plus. So rather than having 3 minus -2, I'm going to have 3 plus 2. And 3 plus 2 is 5. So I have that f inverse of -2 is 5/2. Following that part? Okay, beautiful. All right, so now that I have the answer, that's why I'm inserting it right here, because I actually know what the f inverse of -2 is. But before I had to go and work it to the side, because I didn't know what it was, so I need to go and figure out what it was. And then I'm saying that the 2 and the 2 cancel. So again, if this is given a problem, that's a fractions problem, not a functions problem. All right, so the 2's cancel, that leaves us with 5. And then remember, we just went through how to add and subtract the positive and negative numbers. So if you're not seeing it, you put your little plus in front. So that's +3 minus 5. So we have 3 positive people, 5 negative people. The negative people are winning. So the answer should be -2. All right, guys, so I hope that helped for those persons. If you're still not getting it, you can rewatch the video, or I can just send you other material to help. All right, guys. Okay, so let's try the next one. Right, so if you're finding that it's still having a problem, as I said, if you're following the steps, it means that what we probably need to fix is the foundation more so than the functions. All right, so we should be able to move a little bit faster. Right, so we have f colon x is equal to x minus 3. And remember, I said another way we could write that is with the bracket. So even though they give me like this, I would actually rewrite it and say f of x is equal to x minus 3. And I would say g of x is equal to x squared minus 1. All right, so for the first one, which is f of 6, this means wherever you see, so again, the 6 is the input, so we're going to put 6 into f. So it means wherever I see x, I'm going to put 6. And 6 minus 3 is just 3. See, easy marks. All right, so just remember, f of 6 means wherever I see x, I put 6. So wherever you see x in f, put 6. Then, all right, so for those persons who weren't engaged before, so everybody give me a yes. Are we following? Are we seeing f of 6? So everybody wake up, wake up, wake up. Keep pushing, guys, keep pushing. Is everybody still with me? Is everybody still with me? How did I get the 6 from the question? Look at on the right-hand side. It says calculate f of 6. So I got the 6 from them telling me. So whatever the number they put in the bracket, that's the number you're using. Seeing it? Okay, awesome. Any other questions? Okay, beautiful. So then now we need to find f inverse of x. So remember now, the first thing we have to do, so we have f of x is equal to x minus 3. So remember step 1, we have to let y be f of x. All right, that was step 1. Then step 2, so I'm not going to write out the words since I gave you the words the first time. Then step 2, wherever I see y, I'm going to put x. And wherever I see x, I am going to put y. So step 1, you replace f of x with y. Step 2, interchange your x's and your y's. And then step 3, solve for the new y. So if we have x is equal to y minus 3, this one is pretty simple. What color can we use? All right, so simply the minus 3, when I take it to the opposite side, I'm going to make it plus. Yeah, and so this one was pretty simple, right? To find the inverse. So that inverse, that new y is the inverse. So again, step 1, replace f of x with y. Step 2, interchange your x's and your y's. Step 3, solve for the new y. Again, if you get to step 3 and you have a problem, what you have is a transposition problem, an algebra problem, solving linear equations. That's the problem you have, right? So identify the right problems that when you message me for more assistance, you're able to direct me as to what was given the problem. All right, so allowing persons to write. And then we're gonna do the last part. For those persons who are finished, you can try May 2009, what meaning. So just continue working ahead while we're waiting on the others. All right, so this one now says, show that f of g of 2 is equal to f of g of minus 2, which is equal to 0. All right, so let's first find f of g of 2. So what do we know about f of g of 2? Whatever is on the right, we are going to plug it into the left. So if I have f of x is equal to x minus 3, f of g of 2 simply means wherever I see x, I am going to put g of 2. So clearly we need to find g of 2. What is g of 2? G of 2 means if g of x is x squared minus 1, g of 2 means wherever I see x, I'm going to insert 2. And 2 squared is 2 times 2, so that is 4. And 4 minus 1 is 3. All right, so what we have found is that g of 2 is 3. And what do we see? 3 minus 3 is 0. So what we've done so far is to indeed show them, right, that f of g of 2 is 0. So for the next one, we're going to have to show them that f of g of minus 2 is equal to 0. So again, what did I do? The function on the right, I need to plug it into the left. So it means that wherever I saw x, I needed to put g of 2. But I didn't know what g of 2 is, so I needed to go ahead and find out what it was. So I go over to the right-hand side. So g of 2, right, means that wherever I see x in g, I need to put 2. Right, and 2 squared is simply 2 times 2, which is 4. And 4 minus 1 is 3. So now that I know it's 3, I could actually insert it. And then I see that 3 minus 3 is 0. So I'm going to do the same thing and try to prove that f of g of minus 2 to show them that when I put it in, I'm also getting 0. But what about f of g of 2 being 0? Is everybody okay with that? Anybody not okay? So if it's a yes, give me a yes. If it's a no, give me a no. Is everybody seeing that f of g of 2 is 0? Yeah, for the person who asked me to go over, I'll go over. So let me just explain this next one. right? So that others can move on to 2009 because they're probably having a problem with that. So it's the same thing where you have f of x is equal to x minus 3. Right, so for the person who asked me to repeat, I'm repeating all at the same time. So for example, when you had f of g of minus 2, right, it means that wherever you see x, you are going to put g of minus 2. Right, so similar to the one up top, when it was this, wherever I saw x, I put g of 2. But now wherever I see x, I put g of minus 2. For the person who asked me to repeat, are you following that first part, that first step? Okay, beautiful. So then just like with the one up top, I don't know what g of minus 2 is. Right, so I'm saying that I need to find g of minus 2. But to find g of minus 2, I'm going to need g of x. Right, because remember, what does g of minus 2 mean? It means insert minus 2 into g. Okay, so talk to me. The person who asked me to repeat. So not the final answer, but are you seeing the g of 2 and the g of minus 2? Are you following that step? Okay, I think I'm seeing 2 yeses, but I can't remember. I'm hoping he said yes to this part. Right, and then minus 2 squared means minus 2 times minus 2. And we know that a negative times a negative is a positive. So minus 2 squared should also be 4. And 4 minus 1 is 3. So we also find that g of minus 2 is also 3. So we were able to show that both of them are equal to 0. So I'm going to talk about that whole squared thing a little bit more. But for those persons who are getting it, you definitely have what you need to do May 2009. So go ahead to 2009. Okay, guys, so as you can see, it is 8:30. However, I'm gonna push past a little bit. Hope you guys are not too tired. Is everybody still with me? Can everybody push a little bit more? Is everybody still with me? Everybody feel like they can push a little bit more? Can we reach halfway? Can we do one more page, which is half of the booklet? Can we do that? Some persons haven't answered me all class, you know. It's not good, guys. That's not good. Okay, so something I want to point out So whenever we are substituting values, always put a bracket around them, right? So whenever inserting values, put bracket around. So for example, where I had x squared minus 1, right? So if I say let x be 2, right? I'm saying put a bracket around it so that you can see clearly, because when you do the negatives is when it will really mess up. So what you want to note is that 2 squared means 2 times 2, which is 4. So the positive, not so bad, doesn't cause a problem. However, using the same x squared minus 1, right? Let's say let x be minus 2. Right? I'm saying that whenever we're inserting values, put the bracket around it. Why? Because these two things will not give you the same answer. Right? So minus 2 all squared is saying minus 2 times minus 2, which gives you positive 4. So this gives you 4 minus 1, which is 3. And this is correct. However, when students don't put the bracket around it, what they do is say minus, and then you say 2 squared is 4, and then you say minus 1, and so you give minus 5. That is incorrect. Right? So I'm saying a rule or a piece of advice that I'm giving you, whenever you are inserting values, put the bracket around them so that you don't mess it up. So I'm going to come back to this, but I just want to point out here. Right? When I have the minus 2, right? If you notice, I put it in the bracket. And the reason I did that is so that I wouldn't mess it up. So those who need to take that down as a little note, you're going to need it for, well, guys, you will need it for the next one, but I could show you how in the next one it could still be used. All right, go ahead with May 2009. Okay, so for 2009, all right, we have f of x is equal to 2x minus 5, and g of x is equal to x squared minus 31. So f of minus 2, hopefully we're getting the hang of it by now, means that I need to insert minus 2 into f. Right, so it means wherever I see x, I am going to put minus 2. Remember, we spoke about this. If you have a positive on the outside, right? So your 2 minus 2 is really saying what? 2 times minus 2. And a positive times a negative is a negative, and 2 times 2 is 4. So we have minus 4 minus 5. So for the person who tried to answer, good job, but I think maybe you had 4 minus 5. But it should be minus 4. Right? And if somebody takes away 4 apples, and then they take away 5 more, in total they have taken away 9. So your answer for the first one should be minus 9. For the person who answered, are you seeing a mistake? Okay, good job. All right, let me do a check-in with everybody. How are we feeling? Is everybody okay? Is everybody still following? Is everybody still with me? All right, one person made a mistake, but understanding. Subtract instead of add, okay, be careful. Yeah, sometimes mistakes happen, so it's fine as long as there's understanding. What about everybody else? Is everybody else with me? Are we still going? Are we still following? All right, made a mistake, but understanding, beautiful. Okay, the next one, g of f of 1. All right, so it means we're going to put f of 1 into g. So if g of x is x squared minus 31, g of f of 1, all right, means wherever I see x, I need to put f of 1. And remember I said we always put a bracket around what we're inserting. So I need to go to the side and figure out, all right, so I need to find what is f of 1. So if f of x is 2x minus 5, still messing up the signs, right? Then it means that f of 1 is 2 times 1 minus 5, which is 2 minus 5, which is minus 3. Right? So wherever we see x, we put 1. Right? So what we're basically saying is that we're going to have what? Minus 3 squared minus 31. And what is minus 3 squared? Minus 3 squared is minus 3 times minus 3, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So we should have 9 minus 31. So the answer should be minus 22. So it's not 9 plus 31. Not sure what else you probably have. Yeah, so it's the signs. The signs are mixing you up. All right, if anybody is having an issue with anything, if anybody needs me to go over, let me know. Everybody else, move on to F inverse of 3. Your hint, you're gonna have to find F inverse first and then plug 3 into it, right? Because F inverse of 3 is saying put 3 into F inverse. So you're gonna have to first find F inverse, then plug in the 3. Right, guys, don't be shy. I think you guys have seen, I don't call names in class. I'm not in the business of embarrassing students. So guys, please do not sit there if you're not understanding. This is what the classes are for, right? So you're supposed to let me know so that I can explain for you, right? So if you need me to re-explain, then you have to let me know. I can't read minds. The person who said yes, was that a yes understanding or a yes repeat? Okay. All right, giving you guys a little bit of time to write off. And then we do the last part. Okay, guys, so we're gonna do one more after this. So just January 2007, and then we'll call it a day. The good thing is that on Sunday, because you've already gone through the learning, so a bulk of the first part of class had to do with teaching, so we have to move very slow. So on Sunday, we should be able to just get into it. So generally, guys, that is how the classes will be. So like on the Wednesday sessions, it will move a little more slowly because the first set of questions that I'll choose to do is really going to take us explaining and making sure everybody is good to go. And then after that, we can kind of pick up the pace. Right, to ensure that you look over before Sunday, because it means on Sunday, I'm going to be assuming that we've all gone over. If persons are not understanding, remember I've sent you guys a link to the folder with like all of my class videos. So if it's something you're not understanding, you literally can go in, you can watch the videos, you can do everything you need to do to get full understanding. All right. So make sure you put in the work. All right, so F inverse of 3 is saying that we need to put 3 into F inverse. So the first thing we need to do is to find F inverse. So since f of x is 2x minus 5, remember step 1, you replace f of x with y. Step 2, we interchange them. Step 3, you solve for the new y. So the minus 5, when we take it across, we are going to add. Right, and then the 2, which is multiplied, when we take it across, we will divide. For those persons who want to move on to the last one, you can. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah. All right, so we found the new y, so we know that f inverse of x is x plus 5 over 2. So it means that with f inverse of x, is x plus 5 over 2. F inverse of 3 means wherever I see x, I am going to put 3. All right, so 3 plus 5 is 8 over 2. And remember, I said we can look at this as division. So you can either reduce it or you can say 8 divided by 2 is 4. So this would be your answer. All right, guys, so the final question we're doing for today is 2007. So those who are finished, go ahead and try. All right, so in terms of the other questions, you would be able to attempt most of them. It's just maybe the inverse for the others in terms of you might need some help. But in terms of like just the values and the composite ones, you should be able to do that. And the inverse ones, if you're good at your algebra, you'll be able to do it. If not, you'll definitely have to wait on me, right? But you can still go ahead and look through the rest of the questions I gave and see what you're able to do. All right, guys, so this is our final question. Is everybody still awake? Is everybody with me for the final question? Are we here? Are we still alert? Are we paying attention? Are we not scrolling? Making sure that we're not on TikTok, not doing anything we're not supposed to do? Not looking outside, not staring outside? Is everybody focused? Come on, guys, last question, push through, push through. You can do it, you guys are doing so good. Okay, awesome. All right, so we have f colon x is equal to 7x plus 4. We have g colon x is equal to 1 over 2x, which you know already. I would probably want to rewrite this as f of x is equal to 7x plus 4, and g of x is equal to 1 over 2x. All right, so the first one now is asking us to find g of 3. All right, so I know that means I need to input 3. So if g of x is 1 over 2x, wherever I see x, I need to put 3. Right, and we spoke about that numbers beside each other mean multiplication, so that's going to be, right, so 2, 3 means 2 times 3. So your answer for that first one should be 1 over 6. Right, simple, simple. So those persons who are finished, go ahead and try f of minus 2. So that simply means wherever you see x, you're going to put minus 2. All right, so wherever you see x, you're going to put minus 2. All right, so f of minus 2 means wherever I see x, I put minus 2. And you notice every single time I'm inserting numbers, I put a bracket around it so that I can see it clearly. And 7 minus 2 is 7 times minus 2. And a positive times a negative is a negative. We have a mixture of positive and negative, so we subtract and it takes the sign of the bigger one. All right, those persons who need me to repeat, let me know so that I can focus on you. Everybody else, finish strong and go with F inverse of 11. Right, so if anybody needs me to repeat, declare repeat. I'll focus on you. If you're good to go, just go ahead and work on the last one. Okay, for the person who said repeat, was it for part 1, part 2, or both? Okay, part 2. Okay, so they asked us to find f of minus 2. Right, so are you okay with the concept that wherever I see x, I need to put minus 2? Okay. So then we have 7 open bracket minus 2. So I'm saying that we have to look at it as 7 because numbers on the outside of brackets mean multiplication. But I'm saying a positive times a negative is a negative. So I'm saying that minus, so 7 minus 2 is how I got the minus 14. Okay with the minus 14? Okay, awesome. Okay, so the next part now. So minus 14 plus 4. If you have a mixture of positive and negative, you subtract the numbers. And then you look at them, whichever one is bigger, it takes the sign of that one. Right? So you want to look at it as team negative have 14 points, team positive have 4 points. Clearly the winner is the negative team. Seeing it now? Okay, great job. All right, guys, so for the last one, which is F inverse of 11, right? So F of X is 7x plus 4. So step 1, we have to replace the F of X with Y. Step 2, we interchange the X and the Y. And then step 3, we need to solve for new Y. All right, so this plus 4, when I take it across, is going to be subtracted. And then the 7, which is multiplied, when we take it across, we have to divide. And since I found the new Y, I know that my F inverse of X is X minus 4 over 7. So since I know that F inverse of X is X minus 4 over 7, so I'm just going to go through and explain so that those persons who are okay, I can let them out. All right, so F inverse of 11 means that wherever you see X, you put 11. All right, and 11 minus 4 is 7. So yes, you have 7 over 7. However, I would want you to write that as 1, right? Because any number divided by itself is 1. All right, guys, so those persons who are comfortable and you're okay, let me just close off class for you. So you're going to be free to go. Please ensure that you try the rest of the workbook. I'm going to look through some other past papers and just see if there's anything I want to add, but just work with this workbook that I have. If I need to give you an updated workbook, I'll let you know. So go ahead and try the questions. As I said, you may have a problem with the inverse part of it based on if you're having like an algebra problem, right? So you may need my help with the inverse stuff. So don't be alarmed if when you're doing the inverse, it seems hard. But definitely inserting the values and the composite function, that you should know how to do. So you can go ahead and try it before Sunday, just so that you can see what you're good at or not good at. As I said, there are other videos in the folder. If you're not having, or rather if you're having a problem with functions, you can go ahead and watch the whole lessons, learn it fully, slowly, at your pace. There are other worksheets in that folder as well, in case you guys want extra practice. Not sure, I think that's, yeah, I think that would be it. So those persons who need me to repeat, I'll repeat for you shortly.